you know, Xi Jinping is coming to the United States. He's here. He's here. Janet Yellen, I did think it was very funny. It is the most East Coast thing ever. Janet Yellen landed at the airport in San Francisco. She didn't fly private. She flew commercial. She is the Secretary of Treasury. She landed at the San Francisco airport, and where did she go first? Some of you probably know the answer intuitively when I said it's the most East Coast thing ever. Janet Yellen landed in San Francisco and immediately went to In-N-Out. So In-N-Out is one of those things that we don't have on the East Coast. It is the family-owned hamburger chain. I gotta tell you, it's not as good as people in California say it is. It's good for a fast food chain. It's just not, it's no Five Guys. But you can't get it on the East Coast, and everybody wants it. And so when you go to California, you go to In-N-Out. I can't tell you the number of times I've gone out west when I have to take friends of mine to Las Vegas, and they're like, oh, there's an In-N-Out. We got to go to In-N-Out. I was like, we don't really have to. They're like, oh, yes, we do. It's like, we can go to Whataburger. Nope, they want to go to In-N-Out. So that's where she went. Xi Jinping is there. They've cleaned up San Francisco for him. Well, in the meantime, Joe Biden is focused on the most important issue of our time, according to him.
Today, I'm proud to announce that my administration just released the 5th climate assessment on our nation's history. It didn't just come from out of thin air. Written over 4 years, 750 authors and experts, thousands of American contributors from every single state in the nation, as well as several territories and tribes. It's the most comprehensive assessment on state climate change in the history of America. And it matters. This assessment shows us in clear scientific terms that climate change is impacting all regions, all sectors of the United States, not just some, all. It shows that communities across America are taking more action than ever to reduce climate risk. It warns that more action is still badly needed. We can't be complacent. Let me say that again. We can't be complacent. We have to keep going. Above all, it shows us that climate action offers an opportunity for the nation to come together and do some really big things. You know, I've seen firsthand what the reports make clear, the devastating toll of climate change and its existential threat to all of us, and it is the ultimate threat to humanity, climate change.
Really? I don't know. Jamie Dimon, who's the head of Citigroup, JP Morgan Chase, said that for all the people who say climate change is the biggest existential threat to humanity, is actually nuclear war. Nuclear war. Yeah, I'm with the head of JP Morgan Chase. I think that nuclear war is a much more existential threat to humanity than climate change. One more from the president, though. Listen to this one.
Last year alone, natural disasters in America caused $178 billion in damages. They hit everyone, no matter what their circumstances, but they hit the most vulnerable the hardest: seniors, people with disabilities, people experiencing homelessness who have nowhere to turn.
People experiencing homelessness. People experiencing homelessness. You know, have you noticed how Democrats like to create word salads? You could say homeless. The homeless are hardest hit by climate change. First of all, no, you know who, according to your studies, if you're going to take the studies, Joe, and you're going to say climate change is an existential threat, you know who's hardest hit by climate change? Low-lying islanders, followed by people who live on the coast. Those are the hardest hit by climate change. But notice how you could say homeless. The homeless are hardest hit. But no, it's people experiencing homelessness. It's the word salad of the Democrats to avoid having to deal with the actual issue. See, if you're someone experiencing homelessness, it presumes it could be temporary. Therefore, the government really doesn't need to acknowledge that it might be government policies that caused it. You're just going to rebound at some point. You're experiencing homelessness. It's something you go through. As opposed to a homeless person is someone who lives on the streets and therefore could be a government issue, except the left can't acknowledge that their policies failed, so they have to change the language to try to soften the blow, not for the homeless person, but for themselves. But also, this is the thing that actually gets me about this more than anything else, is how quickly the language shifts for the left. And they all just embrace it, this group thing, the lemmings off the cliff. That we went from unhoused to people experiencing homelessness. We went from pregnant woman to pregnant people to birthing people to chest feeding. Chest feeding is a thing that the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, actually talks about. Chest feeding as opposed to breastfeeding. The way the left moves so quickly with Newspeak, and it's notable the media organizations that so quickly move too. Axios, Politico, and the like, they expose their leftism by their rush to grab hold of the Newspeak. But let's not get distracted by all of that from a larger point here that we're in the middle of a war in the Middle East that could expand, a war in Europe that could expand, a potential war in Asia between China and Taiwan that could expand. And Joe Biden's like, oh, climate change. We all got to come together on climate change. You got John Kerry out there saying, oh, we got to be friends with the Chinese. And you know how we're being friendly with the Chinese? We're making them the dominant party on the planet and us subservient to them, particularly when it comes to batteries and electric vehicles, where China is cornering the market on the rare earth minerals. And this administration seems willing to manage our decline as China rises, as opposed to other candidates who actually want to combat the issue. Ron DeSantis has a piece in the New York Post today as Xi Jinping heads to China, or heads to San Francisco, might as well be communist China. President Biden is set to meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping this week, courtesy of Gavin Newsom's red carpet rollout for the communist leader. If his administration's record is any indicator, Biden will focus more on flattering Xi than holding his regime accountable. His cabinet has chased Chinese officials around the globe only to bow, sing their praises, and make concessions when the meetings are finally secured. The president seems content to manage America's decline rather than confront China and win this decisive decade. Time is running out to act and prevent China from overtaking the United States as the world's leading superpower. As president, I will restore American strength on the world stage and focus our attention and resources on deterring Xi's Chinese Communist Party, the greatest economic and security threat facing America today. My goal is straightforward. We win and they lose. It goes on from there. Time is running out, but time is on our side. The Chinese property bond market is worth $175 billion. The Chinese property bond market for companies invested in real estate in China. They have a bond market worth $175 billion. 125 of the $175 billion in bonds have now defaulted. The Chinese are not doing well economically. It's why Xi Jinping felt the need to come to the United States to cut deals, because the Chinese economy under Xi Jinping has put ideology ahead of policy. Old Chinese premiers put policy ahead of ideology, and the policy shaped the communist ideology. But Xi Jinping, after years of re-education as a child by the Maoists, has come out in favor of a Stalin-like regime in China where the ideology shapes the policy, and communist ideology is bad policy, and Xi Jinping is having to realize it, and so he's coming to the United States. We're not going to him, he's coming to us because he needs to do something. The Chinese economy is flailing. The United States There's time on our side right now in the next decade and the resources on our side to get the upper hand on this. But too many of the intellectual elite on both sides of the aisle, by the way, it's not just Democrats, Republicans as well. Too many people on both sides of the aisle at the upper echelons of the party, the intellectual elite, the people who go blind in the bathroom reading Tom Friedman, they've decided we're in decline. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy of the American elite of both parties that China is on the rise and we are on the decline. The reality is that China is on the decline. That makes them more dangerous right now because they are declining. They are not rising. Every major economic indicator of China is in decline as Chinese communist ideology rises and the ideology shapes the policy instead of the policy shaping the ideology. It's only going to make it worse. We have the opportunity to have another American century, but the policymakers on the left and the right, the whiners at the State Department who signed the anonymous letters in favor of Hamas, those people are all on the side of China's rise and our decline and have convinced themselves that China is rising and we are declining, and they would like to keep it that way. More so not because they're in China's camp, but because they abhor being wrong and they can't admit they've been wrong, and therefore they must make the self-fulfilling prophecy of Chinese rise to prove that they were right when actually they're wrong. We've got to shake this up, and Joe Biden is not in a position to be able to do that. But the Democrats don't care because, we got to have China be nice to us so that we can fight climate change. I mean, to heck with you people. Climate change is the problem. Sure.